The function of leadership is to produce more leaders, not more followers. Leaders of men.
Hello, friends, and welcome to Leaders of Men. I'm your host, Nick Warner. In a society that just yearns for legitimate male role models, I speak to men that are forging a pathway to a healthy, integrated masculinity. And today I have the absolute pleasure of chatting to Bryan Reeves. Bryan is a former US Air Force captain, now a life and relationship coach and host of the podcast Men This Way. His viral blog has been read by over 30 million people in every country on the planet, except for apparently North Korea. Missing out. He's an internationally renowned author with his third book, Choose Her Every Day or Leave Her, available now. This was such a beautiful conversation, and I was really stoked to have been able to tap into his wisdom. I hope you enjoy. Bryan Reeves, thanks for joining me. How are you this morning?
I'm well, man. It's early here in the Los Angeles time zones, but I'm feeling good. I'm excited to be here, man. Thank you for the invitation,
I
Nick.
appreciate it. Let's jump straight into it, brother. What does masculinity mean to you?
What does masculinity mean to me? Well, boy, you're asking me a lifelong inquiry. But if you ask me tomorrow, I'll probably answer it differently. But right now, what masculinity means to me is masculinity to me means the capacity to drop into the stillness at my center, the truth at my center, to be a witness of all that I can experience through my all the various senses that I have, to be in that stillness, not as a way of checking out from the world, but as a way of deeply checking in with the world. So that I can be present, fully present for whatever is arising in the moment, whether it's a threat at my door, there's a sound at my door that may be a threat, or whether it's the pain issuing from my intimate partner's heart in the moment, right? Just masculinity to me means being dropped into a state of open presence such that I am available, not checked out, not lost in some, disembodied reverie, my own sort of what I call a shallow masculine utopia where there's no problems exist. Rather the opposite, where I am so checked in to self, to life, that I am present and available for whatever may arise that may require my service. Yeah.
Love it. Beautiful. If you had a 12-year-old son, what is the most significant thing he needs to know?
If I had a 12-year-old son, I like that you asked that age specifically. And God willing, in the next 12 to 13 years, I might have a 12-year-old son. We shall see. But what I would first do is I would come to him one day and I would say, son, are you ready to learn about being a man? And I would wait and see his answer. I'm guessing if he doesn't say yes in that moment, he's going to say yes in the following year. He's going to say yes soon enough. I remember when I was 12, around that age, 10, 11, 12, I remember I started shaving, although I had no facial hair of which to speak. I was just like, hey, at that time it was really my stepfather who was the present man in my house. He's doing it. I guess I should do it. But he never took the time to show me. So I was already at that age ready to start learning what is being a man about. And nobody really stepped up and offered to show me. So the first thing I would do is just come to him and say, son, are you ready to learn about being a man? And when he says yes, I would then spend an hour a week for the next year teaching him all of the different things that arise, both through my learning, what I know is important to impart to him, and through his questions, right? So father and son, you could say we would dance together in a sense in learning all of the things that, a 12, 13-year-old boy might be interested in, and that I feel he needs to know to be a man. So it's not one thing, it's more of a process, Nick, that I would begin to initiate him into.
Beautiful. How, I mean, one of the biggest, I feel one of the biggest issues with what we're dealing with in society is this lack of initiation from boyhood to manhood. Is that something, like, how would that look for you?
So, great question. So at the end of that year, when he and I have spent all of this time, a lot of time together, learning what it means to be a man. And again, it's not me imposing on him ideas of manhood. Again, it's a dance that we do together in support of his just natural inclination to want to know, and my learning and my lessons. But at the end of that year, I would create some kind of initiation rite of passage for him. Maybe it'd be 2 years. I'm not sure exactly when I would do that. I would do that when I intuitively, instinctively know, okay, he's ready. Today's the day. And I would invite my brothers. I don't have any blood brothers, but the men who are my peers, my friends, my close circle, who are his uncles, essentially. I would invite those men into that experience. And, at this moment, I don't know what that would be, but it would involve some ordeal that he, my son, must undergo himself. It would be dangerous enough that he knows he's done something, he's overcome something meaningful, but it would not be so dangerous that his life would legit be at risk. I mean, we are in the modern world after all. We adapt to the times. I don't know what that would be right now, Nick, but I would absolutely, absolutely. I agree with you completely that we. How old are you, Nick?
38.
38. I'm 46. We are a generation of men that I believe for the first in many generations of men, we not only are we uninitiated into manhood by our elders, we know we are uninitiated into manhood by our elders. We are aware that something's off here, that our elders are the elder men that we grew up with, who were responsible for initiating us into, like you and I, we're aware of it. That hasn't happened in a really long time, I believe, if ever. And so I know for me, it's created a profound, just the awareness of it has made me profoundly sad and angry. And I've had to do a lot of work embracing my elders, my father, my uncles, my grandfather, these men, because because they didn't know any better. I mean, these were, I look at the generation of men above me as a very much a lost generation, men still in their adolescence largely. And so it falls on our shoulders, because we know. Therefore we have responsibility. With awareness comes responsibility. So I'm with you 100%, man. I think the work of our generation, Nick, is to initiate ourselves. Most of us, I certainly would have in the past put the burden of initiation on my intimate partners. Oh, wrong place. Not the not the correct place for that burden. Not consciously, but unconsciously, like somebody fucking initiate me is essentially what but the perpetual adolescent screams, in all kinds of unskillful ways. And so, yeah, should life give me a son? Oh, that is one of the most exciting things that I look forward to doing with him. Yeah.
Beautiful answer, man. There's one thing, when I first started out on my journey, I had this, very familiar story to a lot of men, completely lost and unhappy with life and just disconnected from my heart and really in a bad place, and I ended up on this journey where I met this wise elder, and he said to me at the time, "Don't blame your father. You chose him."
Mm,
And I was
mm.
like, "What does that mean?" And it wasn't for a few years after where I was
Yeah,
like, "Holy
yeah,
shit!" That and the penny
yeah,
dropped, and I was like, "Okay, I get that." And yeah, I went on this
yeah.
journey of doing these initiation rites and doing these processes to really kind of take myself through that threshold because I had nobody to do it for me. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, this
yeah,
this generation of boys that is being raised by a generation of men who have healed is going to be
yeah,
a society of men that we crave for in this moment.
absolutely. Yeah, I believe that is one of the most urgent things like men like you and I can be doing
Mm,
is to obviously first our own initiatory work and the healing work from the pseudo initiations. I was in the military. That's very much a pseudo initiatory rite of passage. I say
mm,
pseudo because what was I being initiated into? But a version of manhood that, ouch, did not feel good, did not,
mm,
I don't believe, really served me or my community. I mean, let's put conversations of, serving country and all that aside, that all has its place. But certainly what was initiated into was not something that connected me to my body, that really connected me to that masculine presence that I spoke about earlier, where I'm truly available to what arises in the
mm,
moment. No, what I was initiated into was an ideology that demanded my fealty, my loyalty, regardless of the implications for the community.
mm.
Right? I mean, it's like being initiated into a gang, essentially, of other
Yeah,
adolescents
yeah.
who likewise haven't been initiated. So, but we recognize the need for initiation. So much damage. Fraternity initiations. I went through that as well. Military initiations, gang initiations. I mean, sports teams have their initiations. The way they haze, rookies and things like this. So it's clearly something that men long for. We recognize intuitively, instinctively, we need initiatory rites of passage, but we have zero wisdom in the practicing of it in our modern day right now, and that is a real tragedy with just unfathomable implications.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think thank you for asking that question, man. This is such important work.
When was the last time you were out of integrity?
um When was the last time I was out of integrity? Well, we don't have to go back far. Um, there's two things that come to my mind that happened in the last week. One was when I snapped at my partner, probably just 2 nights ago. Um, she did something that normally I take as very playful, and it was playful, but it really irritated me in the
Mm,
moment. And I the way that I responded was a little harsh. And it took me probably about 20 minutes to apologize, which is, hey, that's pretty damn good. It used to take me never in the past. 20 minutes is not bad. Um, but I say I was out of integrity because I wasn't communicating a need, and I so she whatever the playful thing she did, I couldn't be present and just be available and respond in kind because I hadn't been honest with her about what I needed in that moment. And so my lack of integrity caused confusion, such that and then my response was again harsh. So that was one. And then another, so in a men's group that I'm running, I had shared something in the group that that it was a it was a little bit of a side conversation I had had with my co-facilitator. I had put it into the group space without asking his permission.
Mm.
And I was a little flippant about it. It was sort of a, to me, it was sort of a silly, fun thing, but he experienced it as a bit of a violation.
Mm.
And I really appreciated him telling me that. And um, hopefully I'm being generic enough such that he doesn't consider this a violation either. I don't think he will. I'm pretty sure that he won't. He actually clarified that, you know, when I can share things when it serves. And I think in this moment it serves.
Yeah.
Um, but I think in that moment it was just sort of a flippant thing that I had done that didn't really serve. I was in my own kind of experience of it, and I wasn't sensitive to the nature of that, of our privacy. And you know, that was again a moment where I was out of integrity. So you know, don't have to look far.
Would you have known?
Happens all the time.
Would you have noticed if he hadn't mentioned it?
Man, I noticed before he mentioned it. I knew. I mean,
Mm.
that's the thing about, you know, integrity. It's like we know. I
Yeah.
knew. Again, it didn't to me. It was like, it's not a big deal. But still, even as I was saying it, there's a part of me that's thinking, okay, I, I'm not holding him up in the best light in this.
Yeah.
You know, it was a, I'm sort of saying it was sort of a, see, I was right and he thought something else kind of deal. So it wasn't exactly honoring of him. And I think that part of me that's like, you know, no big deal.
Mm.
But what am I no big dealing about? You know, clearly there's a deal here. There's a deal. And I'm saying, no big deal. So you know what I mean? It's like he could have just let it go. He could have, and that's, you know, that's what he often does in anger. And he's acknowledged this. And this is, so by him not letting it go, not making it a big deal, but still saying, man, you know, that felt a little violating to me.
Mm.
Damn. Okay, man, I'm so sorry. You're right. I see it. Like we could repair that,
Mm.
you know? So, yeah, man, I knew it was subtle, but I knew.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's, yeah, man, it's such part of what you consistently were speaking about of this, of the presence. And when that subtly, whatever it is, that subtlety comes up, when you're present, it's like, fuck, okay, you feel it. But without that capacity for awareness, that subtlety just, it's almost dissolves into the nothingness.
Exactly. And then you know, I would leave him in the lurch, even if he brought it up without that subtleness. What comes up for me is defensiveness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fuck off, man. It was no big deal. What's the deal? It's no big deal. You could have done that to me. You know, I'm rationalizing all the ways that it's no big deal. I wouldn't have had a problem with it.
Yeah.
Really? Well, that's because I don't feel my body. That's why I wouldn't have a problem with it because I'm disconnected from my own emotions.
Mm.
You know, this is the blessing and the curse of doing these practices, really learning to check in, to come home to ourselves is okay, there's a lot of things we got to feel that maybe aren't that convenient to feel, but yet, you know, what are we doing? What are we doing with our lives on the planet and our, you know, if we're not checked into what's actually going on for our friends, for our lovers, for our parents, for our children, for our community members? What are we doing if we're not feeling that?
What is your deepest desire?
My deepest desire is very simply to live the life I came here, was brought here to live.
Mm.
I am daily in the process of figuring out what the hell that even means. But my biggest fear, you know, I can find my deepest desire living right alongside my biggest fear. And for me, that looks like I am, I have, and there are a lot of layers, some therapeutically, some requiring perhaps some therapeutical intervention, which I'm working with. But from family systems and things, but this fear of not living my purpose, not living the life that I came here to live. I have a deep-rooted fear of that, which I recognize as irrational and yet still very alive in me. And so, it's a daily inquiry. What does that mean today? Um, but that's my deepest desire. I just want to wake up and live the day as I was intended to live this fucking day fully so that I die empty at the end of the day. It's that simple and complicated. Yeah.
It seems to be quite the common response, that the fear of not living purpose, or the fear of
Is that
not
right? Yeah.
living up to potential.
Mm.
Um,
Mm. Interesting. Yeah.
yeah, which in the end, it's
And not surprising.
how do we know? How do we know whether we reached
Exactly.
our potential, or is it a never-ending, infinite
Right.
seeking, in which case we'll never be fulfilled?
And that's why I point out that there's probably some therapy interventions required for this kind of
Yeah.
thinking, because it really is from a program we're sold as
Mm.
men that our purpose is in our doing, getting shit
Mm.
done, accomplishing something, climbing a mountain, doing something. And I think it's both beautiful, but there's an illness, there's a mental ill, dis-ease in that way of perpetual dis-ease in that way of thinking as well. So, it's both. Like I think when we're really having the most honest conversations about masculinity and what does it mean to be a man, I think we're dancing in the land of paradox. Right? It's very paradoxical. We're running into these conundrums constantly, which is what makes it so fun for us and maddening at the same time. It's like intimate relationship. It's so much fun, and God, it's so frustrating at the same time if we're really all in. So anyway, that's all I have
Now,
to say about that.
it's a really beautiful piece that you drop about that, the therapeutic, or the need for something to be looked
Mm,
at, because
mm,
you're right, it comes
hmm.
from this past conditioning that we need to achieve
Yeah,
something, and
yeah,
rather than simply being in stillness and the profound depth of what we can not achieve, but what we can attain through that. So
yeah,
thank you for bringing that in.
yeah.
What is your most profound pain in this moment?
Oh, my most profound pain in this moment. Well, I tell you, man, there's two things that come to mind. Um, and one is pre-pandemic and one is current pandemic. Um, it's been challenging for me to separate sort of what this pandemic experience, how that has influenced my experience. But pre-pandemic, something very interesting that arose for me that I had never anticipated experiencing pain around was for so much of my so much of my life, I was always pursuing something. Here we go again, pursuing, trying to achieve something, trying to attain something. Relationship, career, financial freedom, home, all of this. And then I got it all, Nick. Essentially, I got everything that I thought I ever wanted. And all of a sudden, I realized, holy shit, I have been living for so long in the longing. I have no idea how to just enjoy what is. That was a real surprise. And I'd never had that experience before. And that was quite a shock. And I was amazed how painful actually it was. Like, I was so used to wanting something else, to longing for something. This is interesting though. So, because part two of this is in this pandemic, some things have become clear to me. I think this has happened for a lot of people, the conditions within which we felt constrained. Certainly my case, I'll speak for me. Being constrained in the ways that I have because of the quarantining and the lack of ability to travel and gather, and new desires have arisen out of me, for particularly for community, to live closer to nature, to move out of Los Angeles where I live, to move someplace back to my roots, like East Coast, things like this. And so here's a desire born, here's a new wanting, and the not able to take action on that. And part of this is interesting, being in an intimate relationship, and knowing that if I want to do intimacy well, I have to consider the sensibilities and sensitivities and needs and desires of my partner. I'm no longer a one person system that I just get to make my own decisions and everyone else will figure it out as I go. Like, this is a dance we do together. And man, I am delighted to be with this woman. She's extraordinary, exquisite, and the woman I've waited a lifetime for. And navigating these kinds of moments where these big desires and longings are birthed out that may not be birthing out of her in the same way. Ooh, that's been really challenging. It's been really, really challenging. So again, what is masculinity? Let's come back to that question. What does masculinity mean to me in this moment? It means, okay, connecting with my desire, not dismissing my desire, but also being present for her desire, for her sensitivities, for her fears, and present for all of it. And really sitting in that, being willing to sit in that fire, which is at times, to my conscious mind, is terrifying, man, and agonizing. And yet, I still have this intuitive knowing that, like, it's just time to sit in this fire and just burn, just feel everything that comes up, that is arising to be felt. And that is not something any elder man ever taught me how to do. And that is not something culture ever taught me how to do.
No.
I've been taught to just go solve it, figure it out, fix it. And so that, you asked me, what is one of my profound pains at the moment? It's being patient, I would say. Being patient while our two-person system finds its way together to a reality, to a possibility, to a potential, to an experience that I alone couldn't bring us to, nor she alone could bring us to. And that's, man, that is some next level intimate relationship, figuring out how to stay partnered and to thrive and to find your way together without the normal kind of push pull power dynamics that often take place in intimacy, and it's not for the faint of heart, my friend.
It's a really beautiful piece you brought up as well, with the not trying to solve the pain or to get out of it, but to just sit in it and just allow it to be there and to feel it deeply.
Yeah.
You can't think your way through something like this, but you have to just feel. You can't think your way out of it. You have to feel your way through it.
No. That's right.
So,
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So much more I could say about that, but I also we got questions to get to. So,
what is an uncomfortable truth about you?
an uncomfortable truth about me. An uncomfortable truth about me. I mean, there's so many. Which one do I share?
What's the most uncomfortable?
I'd say the one that's alive for me right now, just in your asking, is, I've had this experience, where you've titled this, I think, Leaders of Men, this series, is that right?
Yeah.
And, one of the great challenges for me as I've stepped more and more into this role of working with men and being a leader of men, is I've often felt like, where the hell am I leading men? I don't know where I'm going. Like, where am I taking these guys? I feel disconnected from my elders, from my lineage of men, and the leadership trainings that I got, through the military. Through I was president of my fraternity in college. I was a captain in the Air Force. Like, I have a lot of leadership training, but again, the ideals of those organizations, and the way they were practiced by the humans in them, even if the ideals be lofty, the humans practicing them have their complications. um, and so that's been one of my great challenges. Even my podcast is titled Men, This Way, right? Where are we going, guys? So that's been one of the real challenges for me, is to answer that question, is to sit in, again, to sit in that question. If I'm a leader of men, well, where am I taking us? Where am I leading us? And at times that's been a really, really challenging question for me to wrestle with. And it's something, I've developed some models. One I call the 5 pillars of a thriving man. And I have my practices and my ways and my learnings and lessons and all of that. But there are times where I just still sit in that uncomfortable question. That's a truth, an uncomfortable truth about me is I often will sit in that question. Okay, I am leading men. I get it. At 46, I am stepping into an elder role, maybe prematurely, but there aren't a lot of elders for men to choose from these days. And given the journey I've been on, I'm stepping into that role. And still at times I'm wondering, okay, I'm not really sure where I'm taking you guys. Like, if you're going to follow me, I don't know where I'm going. So, but let's go anyway and have a good time while we do it. So,
Perhaps,
yeah.
perhaps we don't know where we're going, but we know which way not to go. Maybe that's the way to put it.
Yeah. And I think, it's an uncomfortable truth, I think, because I have the story that I should know. But I think, again, here we are in paradox. If we're being really honest and really real, if we're really living at the edge of our truth, none of us fucking know where we're going. Life doesn't, it's like life's just percolating. It's just dancing, and new things are like, none of us know where any of this goes. So again, it's a paradox, and I think as a leader of men, I think that, we do our greatest service, not when we pretend to know where this is going. Follow me, men, into the breach, but we're stewarding men on their own journeys, even as we continue on our own. It's more, I see more being a leader in this domain is more of a steward, a facilitator, if you will, of men. The initiating elder doesn't do the young man's work for him, doesn't tell him which way to go. He creates the container within which he can have his own experience. But it's still that story that I should know where we're going, still, kind of fucks me sometimes.
I appreciate your honesty on that one.
Yeah.
What is it you are creating?
What is it I am creating? Well, probably I'm one of my flaws is that I try to do too much. Spread myself pretty thin, but I think the core of what I'm creating right now is experiences for men, within which, containers for men, through coaching, through programs, through group. I'm especially really excited to create brotherhood experiences for men, because I think that's a really big missing experience for most men, learning to trust other men. So creating containers within which men can do this initiatory kind of work, the developmental evolution work, from the perpetual adolescence most of us are stuck in, to the matured, responsible, embodied adulthood that we men are aching to experience. But again, without wise male elders, we hardly stand a chance. Yeah, that's what I'm creating.
Beautiful. What would you like to be known for?
What would I like to be known for? What would I like to be known for? What arises for me is uh, beyond any accomplishment I do, because that'll never be enough to my own mind. I would like to be known for my heart. I would like to be known, um, my legacy, like, you know, I guess what I want to, the imprint I want to leave on the planet when I'm gone is that here's an example of a man who cared, who showed up, who leaned into his challenges and the relational challenges that arose, whether with one other person or with his community, and didn't run from them, but showed up and more than tried to figure out what to do with his brain and how to, do all of that brain stuff. Just always practiced, always showed up, always worked against his own shit to show up with an open heart. Yeah.
Doing a pretty good job, I would say.
Thank you. Thank you.
Final question. What would you love for men to know with every fiber of their being?
Ooh, that's a good question. What would I love for men to know with every fiber of their being? Well, naturally, it would be what I'm wanting me to know with every fiber of my being. Um, and that would be that you are enough as you are. Doesn't mean there ain't room for enhancing your skill set, how to communicate, how to make love, how to make money, how to be a parent. I mean, we're not talking about skill set. We can always learn better skills. We can always learn to be more skillful. But that who you are today is enough, worthy of love. There's no more success that you need to accomplish. There's no other mountain you need to climb to prove yourself worthy of love, of existence, that who you are is enough. And if there's one task that it would serve you well to commit yourself, to devote yourself to for the rest of your life, it's learning how to just be present in the moment. Not, as I said earlier, not checked out, floating on some cloud, watching everything, disinterested and disconnected and not taking responsibility, but checked in to your body, to your experience, so that you can be available, present, available to respond and to serve whatever may arise in the world around you, moment by moment by moment. And even that, you're gonna fuck up plenty. You're still enough. You're still worthy. Yeah.
Beautiful way to end that, but thank you.
Thank you, Nick. I've really appreciated your questions, man. This has been really beautiful for me. I appreciate this. Thank you.
Before you jump off, mate, if you just want to share what it is that you've got on offer and your podcast and your book and these things.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I'll actually, my book, Choose Her, is a new book, Choose Her Every Day or Leave Her, a guide for your journey through the transformational fires of love and intimacy. I'm so proud about this book, and I really hope that every man and women too is very validating for women, but I think for men, understanding, I think this is just, for some men, sometimes men, it makes you a little angry at first because, well, I'll let you discover that why, but in the end, men fall in love with this, and this has been my journey as well. So um, that's the thing that I would want men. I think that's a great place to start. Yeah, I have a podcast called Men This Way. Um, And I'm more and more creating programs for men to experience that container that we talked about. But you can find me on my website, bryanreeves.com, Bryan with a Y, Reeves.com, of course, here on Instagram. Yeah.
I'll have all that
Thank you, Nick.
info in the appropriate places. Brother, thank you so much for joining me. It was an absolute pleasure. And,
likewise, Nick, thank you for creating this for us, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Have a beautiful day, mate.